Hey friends, thanks for joining me, Jim Baroud, to hear a few insights from leaders who represent our innovation ecosystem. Today's chat is with Micheline Nader, serial healthcare entrepreneur, and the author of Leap Beyond Success: How Leaders Evolve, and Stephen Bozer, Senior Vice President of Human Health for Flavine North America.
A long time ago, I did scratch all my titles, the CEO, the owner, entrepreneur, leader, whatever. And I wrote HB, human being who is really motivated to align my personal mission statement, which is to empower leaders to be successful and to leap in the world. How did I start? I started very early, like at the age of 24. I was thrown into a war zone and tasked with leading a major hospital under the most challenging circumstances. This experience ignited a fire within me and set me on a path of success as an entrepreneur. But what truly sets me apart is my unique approach to leadership, a concept I call Leap Beyond Success. So after that, I went on. I was in France. I was leading with the French government on turnkey projects in Africa. I was the first expert at the American Hospital of Paris, and I taught leadership for administrators, as well as I pursued my doctoral degree in health services management at that point. And after that, went to Canada, became the VP of a long-term care consortium. And 3 years after, I was in the Midwest, owning my own management company and my own long-term care company for a long time, and then moved back to New York, New Jersey. During all this time, what happened to me and what I loved most was the personal growth and development that I had to go through, and I decided to go through. And what informed my leadership and my leapership after that was the personal growth and development that I rendered also accessible to my teams by creating high performance team as they went through the same program and as I coached them. So this is me. Forget all this and write HB, and it will be me.
I love that. I love that. And we're going to get into that. So Steve, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you do now.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jim, for this opportunity, and always great to be with Micheline as well. As a young child, there were two things that I was passionate about. I was passionate about science, and I was passionate about business. My mother worked for Merrill Lynch, and my dad was an aerospace engineer. So I was fortunate enough to be exposed to a lot of really cool things on both sides. And I sort of fermented in my teenage years that, boy, wouldn't it be great, since I know I'm passionate about science and business, if there's some path for me here. And that led to me to go to undergraduate at Binghamton University and be a biology major, taking a lot of chemistry, and making that big decision saying, well, I don't want to go to med school. It was interesting. Most of the biology and chem majors were going to med school, taking the MCAT. And I said, no, I want the business part as well. So I have to think about this. And then I graduated, and we can get into some of the details of how my career was a little bit unorthodox. But I managed to eventually get into the pharmaceutical industry. And that led me to an opportunity to get an MBA at Fairleigh Dickinson University, which is special to all of us. I have the Vanderbilt mansion in my background here. And that experience changed my life. The experience at FDU was absolutely tremendous. And through that, my dream came true. My career has now gotten me to the level. I'm a senior vice president of a pharmaceutical company where every day I exercise science and business, and my passion comes through because my dream came true. And I aspire every day to become a better leader. I've gone through several times in my career when my leadership has been challenged, and I've had to learn. Some of those experiences have been wonderful. Some have been, challenging, but you learn from them. And I've also had the fortunate opportunity to stay involved with FDU, and that's how I met Micheline, where we sit on the Silberman board together. And I realized she, as an author, was writing several great books on leadership. And I had read The Dolphin's Dance, which was one of her first. And I was excited to hear about her subsequent book, which I know we're going to talk about today. And I aspire to read as much as I can about leadership. There's all sorts of great business books out there. The canon that's out there: Good to Great by Jim Collins, Execution by Larry Bossidy, good, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. There's all these classics, right? And then there's all these modern books that take advantage of additional learnings in human psychology and additional business learnings. Business has changed. It's changed fundamentally through COVID. I mean, we're just coming through an incredibly, first it was the internet, right? In 1999, right? And all the way now through COVID, everything has gone through fundamental changes. Leaders have to adapt. And I'm excited to speak with you guys today about my experiences, but also how, Micheline's guidance and mentorship of me has helped me tremendously in my current position as a senior vice president. So
that's great. Look forward to getting into that. You mentioned previous experiences, right? Some negative, some positive, and, we learn from those types of experiences. And so I want to ask you, talk to us about one of those experiences that were, life-changing or career-changing, and what you learned from it.
Sure. One of the first real challenges to leadership was when I went from being just an employee to now being promoted, and now people reporting to me and hiring people. So I was still in my 20s, but I was progressing fast in this one organization, and they promoted me and now said, all right, now you need to lead a team. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm only 25 years old. This is new to me, but I did borrow on some previous experiences. I had been captain of my undergraduate swim team at Binghamton, which was a leadership role. I had to inspire people and let's go. And we had a lot of success on that swim team. And I thought, well, there's I'm passionate about sports. So, there's a lot of leadership examples in sports that maybe can help me now in this moment, now that I have to hire people and lead them. But I was always fortunate because I had always looked above me, and I was observing how different leaders were leading people. And I saw some examples that I said, oh, that was something that really didn't work. Like I saw a leader thinking they were leading, and I saw the people walk out of a meeting discouraged, their body language was terrible. And I'm like, oh, that was probably a failure. And then I saw other leaders inspiring people and pushing people and creating tremendous results. And now here's me. I had two employees, and I had to lead them. And that was a challenge because I realized quickly that you need, as a leader, to understand the human beings that are working now with you, and your approach to motivate them. What works for one didn't necessarily work with the other. There was no just quick and easy way for me to say, this is how it is. I had to sort of tailor my leadership to two employees. It was my first opportunity. And that was a little bit challenging for me because one of them, it was like, why don't they want to come in and work all weekend? Don't they want to advance their career? And I was insensitive to the fact, well, she was a new mother, and there's other responsibilities too. And I had the other employee was a go-getter that wanted to get promoted immediately, so I was dealing with like two different personalities. And I said, all right, let me think about how I want to make sure we accomplish our corporate goals, we succeed together. And my goal as a leader was to make sure they also got promoted. I think it's very important for leaders to say, anyone that's reporting to me, I need to show you a path, if you want it, to also accelerate through this organization. And it's my job to give you a blueprint and to help you get there. So I had to go through the challenge of understanding human psychology, people that didn't necessarily have the same thought process as me, but we had a goal. We had to increase our business. And I struggled a little bit. I realized I had to deal with some of the psychology of some employees complain about other employees to the boss, and then you have to do something about this. So that was challenging for me because it was like, why don't you guys just settle this dispute? Why do you need me to get involved? But that's not the way it works in organizations, right? So, I would say that those are some of the big learnings I had as a young person. I'm glad that I had those as a 25-year-old because it really helped me continue this journey of trying to constantly improve. Now I have huge teams reporting to me. I have a lot of
and we're going to get into that, Stephen. So let's just circle back to Micheline, because I want to hear, some of her seminal experiences or one or two that sort of, opened her eyes into the, into becoming a great leader.
So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jim. Actually, when I was 24 and I took on this, it was an opportunity. It fell on my lap because my professor at the hospital administration professor, was also the director of the hospital who hired me. He saw some potential in me that I did not see, and that we'll talk about it later. So I was like 24 years old. I wanted to prove myself as a leader, and I got this job. And so we were three, the director, and we were two assistant directors of the hospital. And I had the responsibility of certain departments, among them the ancillary services, the physicians, the nursing department, and the HR. And one of the challenges we had was that we had a big backlog of discharge summaries that were not signed. The physicians were not signing their discharge summaries, which meant that we were not able to do our quality assurance. We were not able to do our billing on time. And that created a whole, ripple effects in the organization. So here I have one of my first projects is to get this done, right? And what do? 24-year-old, I write this note where I tell all the physicians, if they don't sign their discharge summaries on time, we will suspend their admission privileges. And no, right? And I think what happened, the director sees this note, he doesn't tell me anything, but he retracts it without telling me. So see my embarrassment, and the physician's buddy in a hospital, like we had 400 physicians, very powerful, knowing nothing. I'm alienating everybody. That was my first failure. But boy, what I learned from that failure was really lessons for my life. So here we go. I sent this note. It was retracted. There was this big silence every time I see a physician, or walk by this, until I know that it was retracted. And oh my God, the shame that I had to go through. But what I learned to assess the situation before I act. I learned also that management by fear will get you nowhere. And I learned the biggest lesson of my life, enroll, don't sell, that I also talk in my book about this, which is very important, because enrolling your stakeholders. Had I come and I met with the physicians and told them that if they did not sign their discharge summaries, they would not get the money because we won't be able to bill, and enroll them into that, we would have had a better result. But that was what I learned, and I applied it, and it was the lesson that I'm really proud of. So it's really not important. We have to fail in order to learn. But the great thing is to learn from that experience, get the learning and the teaching, and apply it for our future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm so glad both of you use examples of when you were younger, right? And a lot of young people are going to listen to this. And it's so important to realize that these experiences can happen early in your career and fundamentally can change you. And the important thing, as you said, Micheline, is to learn from it and grow from it. So speaking of leadership, let's talk about some of the principles that are outlined in your new book, Micheline. And so love to hear more about that. And then I'd like to talk to Stephen about, how he's grown as a leader as well. So go ahead.
So what prompted me to write this book is that traditional way of leadership is failing us. Like, look around us, look at the statistics. 75% of the people around us trust a stranger more than their own boss. And not only that, the studies have shown that 80% of leaders are not equipped to lead. Of course, leadership has gotten us to great science and technology, and there's all this positive aspect of leadership. But the traditional way is not working. Look at the conflicts in the world. Look at everything. It's time for us to dismantle and embrace a new humanity of leadership that requires us to leap instead of walk. This is where my 4-step process of leap beyond success comes. And this process is, in a nutshell, based on these 4 steps: lean into your passion, execute from your purpose, align your mindset, and program your emotions. And why is that? Because this will help anyone on the leadership, spectrum to unlock their inner potential, embrace personal growth, and create a better world. Because the question becomes, how can I help the stage, or how can I contribute to the stage of leadership in a way I only can? That becomes the question.
Got it. And Micheline, can you show your book? I'll put a link in the show notes, just so people can purchase it.
Got it.
Great, wonderful. Okay. Now how does this build on your first book? Can you talk about that as well?
Yes, my first book was The Dolphin's Dance: Discover Your True Self through 5 powerful steps in conscious awareness. And I remember when I went with this idea to the publisher said, look, your acumen is in business and in leadership. If you write a book on leadership right now, we take it right away. Why do you want to write on personal growth and development? I said, because this was the thing that made me leap in business. And leap meaning you create your success, and you live a passionate life, and you create your success, and you go beyond your success on the personal level. So my first book went deep into, I know what Steve loves, the emotional state of being and the mindset, because we have to have a growth mindset. We have to have a positive mindset. And goes into the initial wound that blocked us from going further in life. This book's premise comes from a way where, look, don't wait. You can create a passionate and purpose-driven life now. You can create your legacy now. You don't have to wait like Alfred Nobel, who waited until his 80s, and he read his obituary by mistake in a French newspaper that was writing the obituary normally for his brother. And they called him the merchant of death because Alfred Nobel had created dynamite. And all of a sudden he said, oh, I don't want to be known. This is not my legacy to be the dynamite merchant. He created the Nobel Prize that right now humanity benefits from. But how many of us will be able to accumulate the wealth that he accumulated and will be able to create that legacy at the end of our life? There is a system, there is an entryway where we can create our legacy now and contribute to the stage in a way we only can. And if we do that, we create fulfillment in our life. And what is not known is that creating fulfillment in your life right now is connected to creating a better world. And people say, really? Why and how? And the system of leap beyond success shows them why, how, and gives them a blueprint to go through steps. And going through these steps will get them there.
Got it. And so, Steve, talk to us about how you've used some of those principles in your business life. And
sure. And I encourage anyone listening to this podcast that, I encourage you to read Leap cover to cover. And here's a very specific reason why. Throughout these 4 steps, and Micheline mentioned them about leaning into your passion, executing from purpose, aligning mindset, and programming emotions. She has exercises in the book that you do. And she says, here, I want you to stop and pause, and I want you to follow the steps in this exercise. And each one of the chapters has these exercises to do. And it's through doing those, you take advantage of her knowledge of human psychology and her experience as a leader all these years. And you you do these exercises and they're so well written and constructed that you walk away saying, wow, maybe I thought I was leaning into my passion, but now I'm thinking about this differently. Maybe I thought I was executing from purpose, but maybe I was conning myself, and doing these exercises was pointing out that there's more to think about. So I was learning. It's a great book to digest. Read it in chunks. I did it some on my Kindle, some on a hard copy. I'm making notes, but I took the time to go through the exercises. One of the things that's really been impactful for me as a leader now of a large organization and having a lot of stakeholders was the fourth step, specifically programming your mindset. And I love the word program because that's an action word. That means that you can take action on your emotions, because many people, and myself included, was like, well, my emotions are my emotions. I'm an emotional human being. I get emotional in certain circumstances, and sometimes I can't control my emotions. But she didn't say control your emotions. It was program your emotions. And there's this exercise in the book where you come up with your leadership emotional logo, which she abbreviated the LEL. And what a fascinating thing to do that helps me lead every day. It's an exercise where when you follow it, you focus on a previous time in your history where you may have had a tough lesson that was learned. Micheline just shared one of her experience in that hospital. I can quickly share one. I was hired by Teva Pharmaceuticals as a senior director of sales, and I got in the job, and I was immediately in charge of hundreds of millions of sales and huge contracts. I had gotten an email on the second week I was there. I got an email that had an attachment of an enormous contract, hundreds of pages of legal documentation that was my responsibility. And what I did was I just forwarded it to our lawyer. Okay. I said, well, gee, this has been negotiated since long before I got here. Let me just forward it to the lawyer. Within seconds, I got an email from the big vice president. He said, come and see me, please. And I go in there, and he says, sit down. And he's a great guy. He's a dear friend of mine today. But he said, Steve, look, we hired you to use your intelligence and your language to do work that leads to higher sales. I just noticed that all you did was forward a document to a lawyer. I could literally hire a chimpanzee at $5 a day to do that work. And as I'm sitting there, my emotions, like I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. I'm a loser. He's calling me out. He's basically saying, why did we hire you? You all you did was shuttle an email. Like, and I'll never forget the words he was using. You literally didn't spend any of your intelligence that we hired you for to read it and understand it. And you need to do that. So please go back and do better next time. I mean, I thought I was fired. I really was sitting there like nervous, but my emotions were getting to me. And I walked out of there like feeling like just a total failure. Like, oh my God, boy, did I fail this organization. I'm only 2 weeks in. But then you read LEAP, and you read about programming your emotions and forming your leadership emotional logo. And you say, when these circumstances hit, what you can do is you can say you can have your emotions programmed so that you can program the emotions to a positive outcome. You can walk out of a learning experience that may be brutal on your psychology and brutal for your self-esteem, but say, you know what, I'm actually going to flip this. I'm going to program this experience in a way that I am going to become so much better and demonstrate this quickly. And I think one of the themes of Micheline is lead now, leap now. Now is the time. Don't wait. Every experience, you can immediately make a leap, and hence the title of the book, and become a better leader immediately. And the exercises about programming emotions in her book I use every day. And I find that I keep having opportunities to practice this, not only on myself, but also with other employees of mine that I'm encouraging to read this book, and I'm encouraging to go through these exercises. So, I encourage anyone listening to this podcast at any age, at any point in your career, if you truly take the time to read through the book, do the exercises, and apply these learnings, I guarantee you, you will leap in your career, in your personal life, because they are connected, and to the bigger mission. You will make the world a better place. And it really is a true statement that I am programming my emotions every day. So,
well, that is a great testimonial, Micheline, for the book and for your principles. That really is amazing. So, Micheline, how do you sort of respond to that? You see someone's using those principles. What other sort of guidance can you give to other people who were sort of reading the book and in not necessarily a business or corporate structure like Steve, but maybe a nonprofit leader or a business professional, or maybe even a nurse?
Yes, absolutely. And at first, I want to thank Steve, because through testimonials like this, I'm within my passion. It just confirms that I'm, it's for me a confirmation that I'm doing the right thing. And by even, making Leap Beyond Success known, that I'm contributing to the stage of leadership, which really, for me, is my mission statement, is the why. The why do I do what I do? So thank you, Stephen. What I want to say is, for non-for-profit, you asked this question. I did do a workshop for like 400 not-for-profit leaders, and I found out that it was so much easier for them to get the principles of passion and contribution. So these people are already there, because this, what they do and the way they do it, is to contribute to the stage, that passion. What they needed, though, was sometimes some of them is how to execute. Because in Leap Beyond Success, you learn how to execute. There's nothing like flawless execution. And we just saw, like what we heard from Stephen or from me. I mean, when you execute, you have to be able to go back on your failures and assess the processes, reevaluate, go forward again. So there's nothing that flawless execution. But when you execute from your purpose, meaning that you've created a mission statement and you understand why, then the failures will take you back to the why you're doing what you're doing, and you will create a self-motivation. And you put neuroscience and that, execute from your purpose. I also bring all the neuroscience and the new technology to put it to your best advantage. How do you create this? How the dopamine affects you when you're going towards your goal, and how you could use it to create a high-performance team and high-performing team that will help you no matter where you are. So these principles, when I wrote the book, I thought I was writing it for emerging leaders, because emerging leaders would need to hear the message, look, create your legacy now, contribute now, because success alone, like, you will be alone. It's not fun to be successful alone. You want to bring people with you for that success, your team, your community, whoever you are within, to that success, and create a better society. But then what I was very surprised of was that seasoned leaders like Stephen and others loved it, because the second part of the book also allowed them not only to create their own passion, but also to remove the stumbling blocks towards total fulfillment. And I can't tell you, Jim, how many successful, wealthy leaders who created like immense success have areas of their life where they feel not fulfilled. And I was like, yes, it's time for all of us to leap. Not only, emerging leaders or successful leaders or people who need the execution in order to be successful, because in the book also, you have to be successful. You have to be successful reaching your goal. And success means different things to different people. So you create your own success the way you want it. You link it to your passion. You connect to your passion. And from your passion, it's not like, so many people talk about purpose and it's a spiritual word and it has a connotation. No, here it's a pragmatic, functional word where you only have to contribute your passion to more than yourself in order for your passion to become a purposeful passion. And what happens when you do that, it won't be only about your success. It's not only about me. And the world does not need only a me. The world needs you to stand, to contribute your passion. We are needing your passion, and we're needing it right now, We're needing it in a good way. We're needing it in a way that we contribute to the world in a way we only can. And yes, today is different. Stephen was saying, like, the pandemic created a shift. Now AI is creating a big shift. You think you're smart? I mean, AI could create your essay in 5 seconds, an essay that you would put 5 hours, maybe 5 days, and would create it better than you. But who are you? In the LEAP principles, we're leaving the conventional notions of success, and we're getting into the true leadership. We're embracing a more holistic way where we go beyond that thinking. Thinking AI could think for you, but who are you as a human being? How could you develop your own awareness, your own consciousness, and the consciousness around you, where I guarantee you, you will beat AI.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because everyone can benefit from these principles, this book. Is that right, Steve?
100%. Again, I think maybe the original intent was to target emerging leaders, but these exercises that you do takes advantage, again, of Micheline's knowledge of neuroscience, of psychology. And essentially, and it sounds maybe a little cliche, but if you want to become a better human being, this is a guide that if you truly, take it and use discipline to practice what it tries to teach you, you will become a better human being. It's a natural outcome. So it's like a lot of books that were written for business leaders also tie into the overall psychology and message of becoming a better human being. And by being empathetic and being a listener and listening more than you talk, and some of the basic things that many of us learned in kindergarten, but if you forget as an adult, there's different really good books written over time that deal with these themes. I just found that LEAP was a nice consolidation of a lot of work that that she'd learned from previously, but was able in a structured way, let you digest, do an exercise, and walk away with something concrete instead of something ephemeral, and say, wow, I can specifically think about programming my emotion today when, look, I'm in sales. Business is brutal. In a competitive world, it is, you hate to use phrases like, dog eat dog, but it's a very competitive environment that brings a lot of stress, especially now the end of the year, closing the books, trying to maintain profitability, to keep everyone's positions, to make sure everyone gets bonuses so that they're inspired to stay and whatnot. So emotions run high. Emotions are running high right now all over the world, for many reasons. But if you're looking at just from a specific business point of view, I had a phone call this morning with one of our partners in China, and they feel a lot of stress and pressure with making sure that their sales are up. So in order to deal with the competitive nature of our species and our desires to, and I'm a big fan of capitalism. I think it's the best of all the worst systems we have, but I'm a big champion of it. But to your point, is this book just for emerging leaders? Absolutely not. This book is really for anyone that wants to leap to X, leap as a better husband, wife, leap as a better sibling, leap as a better business leader, leap as a better parent, leap as a better professor. You can apply these exercises and concepts to pretty much any part of your life, which is a unique aspect of this particular book. And I'm a voracious reader. I just love to read. So I've read so many business books. It's kind of a cultish thing, you want to just read as much as you can. But in particular, I found this to be an extremely helpful book because of its concrete ability to walk away with something that you can actually practice and use immediately to good effect. Hence leaping. It's not like walking. Again, I love the analogy. It's not walking it's actually taking a leap to a better position quickly. So
I think that's really insightful, because you've read so many books, right? That this book is really different, and you can internalize it and use it every day. So I'm glad you mentioned that, and it's good for people of all ages, which is great too. And speaking of young people, this has been a great conversation, but I always like to share tips for the audience, particularly young people, right? So is there one tip that both of you want to share for young people who want to sort of make an impact and be successful in their first job or a new job? Let's start with you, Steve.
Sure. if there's one thing, and I've spoken to many, recent graduates of FDU and even undergraduates. I maintain a lot of. I'm very active, and I'm hearing what young people are saying and their anxieties about the future and their concerns. And I tell them, if there's one thing I'd like you to have in your mind as you start a new position, and again, it may be an unorthodox first position. Mine was a temp. I was a temporary chemist at a pharmaceutical company. Did I think that was I was going to be doing at 21 years old? No, but what I tell young people is when you're in your first positions, realize that there's going to be older people around you that know the business and have a lot to teach. And if you exhibit a genuine, contagious enthusiasm, and this kind of leads into the LEAP principle of leaning into your passion. Maybe you haven't fully evolved what your passion is as a young person. A lot of people have, and they still don't know what they want to be when they grow up. I know 60-year-olds that don't know what they want to be when they grow up, but you're young and you're in your first position. If you exhibit a genuine, contagious enthusiasm for not only what you're specifically doing, but what other people are doing, that enthusiasm and the contagious part of it is, and when it's genuine, older employees and people and leaders love to take that young kid under their arm and mentor them. It's this natural human trait. And boy, did I benefit from wonderful mentors. There's so many, I can't even name them all, but people that said, hey, young guy, you're enthusiastic. You're here early. You're staying late. There's a second shift. You could go home, but you're actually staying on second shift because you want to learn what they do on second shift because it's different. And people kept saying to me, hey, kid, I like your enthusiasm. Let me show you something. Let me teach you something. Boy, did that help me evolve. And it allowed me to witness what leadership also is, a lot of mentorship. Leading people is also taking them under your arm and trying to bring them to some knowledge that maybe you can impart on them or some lessons of life and whatnot. So contagious enthusiasm is something that will benefit anyone as they're beginning. It benefits you for your whole life, by the way. But just, I've noticed, I've been at many companies, and sometimes an employee joins and they're in at 8 and they're out at 4:30 and they don't show much desire to learn, and then it gets hard to lead that person through the organization. Others come in and they have that enthusiasm, they want to learn, and they're willing to go above and beyond. So the tip is keep in mind contagious enthusiasm that has to be genuine, but that will maybe help you lean into your passion, which is the first step of the book. So that's advice I would give.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And Micheline?
Well, I would tell the young emerging leaders not to settle for less, not to settle for mediocrity, to embrace their potential, as Stephen said, and become a legend today. And they can join the ranks of leapers and make a difference in what they do. And really the tools are available to them. And Leap Beyond Success, leaning into your passion and creating from your purpose, there are tools. They can take it and really connect with their passion. And I'm sure there are plenty of other books there, or plenty of mentors, like Steve said. And I can't overemphasize the importance of having a coach to lead us. But I want to tell them also that the time for action is now. None of us is off the hook for creating this in the world by the virtue that we live in this world. And success alone is not success. It's lonely. It's really lonely. Success, as we take into consideration the empowerment of people and we stand for them to get to their own success the way they understand it, has a whole different meaning that will help the person who's doing this, the leader, not only to be empowered, but to be fulfilled. So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's a great way to conclude this great conversation. Thank you, Micheline. Thank you, Stephen. We usually end with a quote or a poem or a saying. So, Steve, I'm going to start with you. What would you like to share?
The book I read as a young lad was The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It's just a beautiful book. I encourage everyone to read it. If you speak French, read it in French. But the quote is this, and how does I feel this pertains so much to the world today, with there's a lot of negative, there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of things that we see every day. But the quote is this from the book: "It is only with the heart that one sees rightly what is essential is invisible to the eye. And I just find that a powerful thought that just inspires me every day when I think about it.
Got it. Thank you for that. All right. And Micheline?
I love Le Petit Prince. It really speaks to this emotional set of us. And I'm going to continue with, I love this poem of Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out of some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And that would explain that whatever comes our way as leaders is really welcome, because we can learn from it and also become a better leaper.
I love that. That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Micheline. Thank you, Steve. This has been a really great and insightful conversation. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it, leave a review, and subscribe. See you soon.